Well, hello, buddy. How's it going?
Life's good, man.
Awesome. Thanks to everybody that's starting to join us, starting to come into the stream here. We'll try to watch for your comments and stuff. Got Buddy here with us live from Ohio, and I'm in the great state of Oregon. So definitely have some different geography and some different opinions going here. So, but we're just sharing what we do in church security and our thoughts and our opinions on things. So how's the weather back there today, buddy?
It's a beautiful day today. Sunshine and birds are singing.
Nice. We're supposed to be like suddenly 90 degrees here for some reason. So
we're going to hit 69 today.
Oh my goodness. I love that. All right. So might as well kick it off here with we talked certainly our title of this and our discussion, our base discussion that we want to talk about is, what's happening with the threats towards churches and the climate here currently. So what do you think, buddy? What do you think about the existing threats and the climate, that kind of stuff that's going on right now towards the churches?
We're not getting any information as far as what kind of threats are out there, just to be aware that there are threats. I think Ray knows what they are, but he's not telling us. I'm just staying on my toes, stay on top of the game, and be prepared for anything different or unexpected to happen. We can always prepare for those things that are expected, but the unexpected, we don't have a clue how to prepare for those. So we just have to react.
Yeah, you just do your best and kind of try to guess at what the things might be. And I've certainly got some thoughts, but yeah, I mean, we don't have a lot of details. We can start suspecting, and then it gets into politics too, we start suspecting what could be the next possibility. But I, with the FBI director telling us, I mean, I think he's told us 4 times now in the last 6 months or so that things are getting worse, that he's seeing more red lights and more threats than he's ever seen in his career going on. So, from my time in law enforcement stuff, I can tell you if the FBI is saying stuff like that, then there's definitely some serious stuff going on. But like you said, they're not giving us any real details or any meat that we can work with. So,
no, but we are seeing some things on the news occasionally. We're seeing more activity on the news toward churches and pastors and religious organizations. So,
yeah,
it's definitely ramping up. And as we get further toward the election, I think it's going to get worse for us.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And definitely we see the climate, the bomb threats and I mean, vandalism and even just thefts, even just the petty stuff towards the churches, people throwing rocks at the windows. And it's just like that stuff is on the rise as far as I see it. I see more and more reports of it online. So it's definitely the climate is changing a bit for the church, and it's not in a good direction right now. So we got to be on our toes. So, I think that what we do see, I mean, I've got some opinions on it. I made some notes. The difference between the lone wolf attacks, and that's always been traditionally our issue. And then some discussion about small groups. And I think if we're going to be changing our game at all, and I certainly want to hear your thoughts, buddy, but I think that we got to be starting to think about what if we had a small group, 2 or 3 of people or some other scenario that might try to attack our church, and that might get to be a little bit overwhelming for some of us. It's not likely to happen, but I think that's the next thing we might try to prepare for, just because of what we're hearing, if you're paying attention to any of it, and not to be political at all. I don't care about the politics of it, but we're definitely seeing large groups of folks coming from other countries being reported coming over our border, that those groups don't like us typically. They don't like Americans, and they don't like Christians. So, I mean, we can expect at some point there might be some kind of issues that start to crop up from those folks. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, the one thing that I've seen that I've talked to our parking lot guys and our camera folks is keeping an eye on the parking lot because they're stealing cars.
Yeah.
That's something that's really, it's the first thing that's happening around churches because we're a soft target anyway, and our people are a soft target. My concern is that we have a couple individuals coming here separately, not as a group, walk into the auditorium separately and cause a disturbance in different points in the auditorium. How are we going to deal with that? I've got a team that escorts one person out, but we're not set up to escort 2 or 3 people or 4 people out. And
Yeah.
we're going to have to play through those scenarios in our mind and who we're going to call on to help us in that. And so that's my concern right now is the disturbance in the church by multiple persons.
Yeah, and some of us, we only have just a handful of people, and some of us may only have 1 or 2 people. So we might have to think of who we're going to recruit. We may have to recruit a pastor or worship leader or a volunteer teacher or somebody that is capable of helping us. We might have to start talking to them about that if that scenario were to ever happen, certainly. So
we need people that have silver tongues.
Yes.
To negotiate with these folks. And because when somebody comes into your church like that, and they're going to cause a disturbance, they already have a plan of action. They know what they're going to do. And if we can disrupt their plan of action, then we win. And so if we throw them a curveball or come from somewhere where they're not expecting, or make a comment or a suggestion or anything to mess them up with what they have planned, we're ahead of the game. And so we have to find those people with the silver tongue that think on the run.
Yeah, we need that. We need that for both the church being a welcoming environment and, and being able to even minister to the tough people, the difficult people. So we certainly want that. That's a great point that you bring up there. And I want to make sure and mention those of you watching, if you have questions, send us a note, leave a comment with your question. And Buddy and I are ready to try to answer those questions. And between the two of us, we can try to come up with something. So, and along those lines, I think a couple of the tactics, if you really look at things, I try to look at what's going on in some of these countries that those folks are coming here. I think that's the next thing, as I'm kind of talking about, maybe group attack kind of thing, and what might their tactics be. And if you look at what's going on in some of these countries where these folks are coming from, and I don't think these are all bad people. I just want to say, I think a lot of them are coming here to try to seek a better life. But I've subscribed to a couple of pages where I saw one guy who was actually down in Panama watching the groups coming through as they're heading north towards our border and getting ready to catch buses and stuff. And he was showing us where these were military age men and they had all their military tattoos and everything. And they were in these groups that were coming north over the border. So I certainly understand that a lot of these folks are coming here for a better life, but I'm kind of suspicious as to what some of the other folks might be coming here for. So sadly. So as I look at that, my thought is look at their tactics. And there's a lot of knife stuff that goes on because guns are harder to get in other countries, and it would hold true here somewhat for folks. So thinking of your scenarios for your team, knife attacks, being prepared for that, thinking of use of force and challenging your mind on those kind of things. And then I think I see fire and I see explosive devices used a lot in other countries. Would you agree on that, Buddy? You think?
Absolutely. What we need to understand is these folks come from a completely different culture than ours, and they play by a different set of rules.
Yeah.
And so it's nothing what we have experienced over the past few years. That's be just so small compared to what we could be facing with these groups coming in. And I think the biggest thing that we can have, which you and I've always talked about, is just have a good presence outside. If we have a large group outside, that'll deter them. If they don't see anybody out there, then hey, they're going to come on in.
Yeah. And we we try to, at my church, we have name tags that are flopping on a lanyard, and then we try to have at least a couple people outside the front door, maybe sometimes 3 or 4 people. So that are just kind of hanging out and greeting people, but also, being seen. So, and I also think, there might be a couple other things where you're brushing up on where your fire extinguishers are.
Yeah.
And, those are great. Those are great devices if you have to put out a fire, but don't forget they're a great tool also if you have to defend yourself, or you need a tool to go after somebody, for those of you that are unarmed in your church security. And the other thing just my thought is, the other thing I hope that you're already doing is that when you're showing up to church, that you're getting there early. One of you on your team or you are getting there early and doing a sweep around the church, that you're making sure everything's A-okay and there's nothing suspicious. And I hope that you would begin to start to look for suspicious packages, those kind of things. It does happen sometimes and we don't expect it. But once in a while, we can become a target of somebody that wants to use an explosive device or some kind of chemical or those kind of things. So I hope you have that routine of doing one sweep. We do that first thing in the morning, and then we do it a few times throughout the service, throughout the day. But I hope that you're going to begin to look for those suspicious packages, because certainly the bomb threats are going up, and we never know when somebody's going to decide that they actually want to carry through with that kind of thing. So you got anything to add to that, buddy?
No, I agree completely with what you're saying. I thought this week about the fire extinguisher situation and where they're at, and make sure people know, so that we could use those if we have to, because not everybody's armed on our team.
Yeah.
So we only have just a few people who are armed.
Yeah. Yeah, very good. So make sure as you're coming into the chat, if you have any questions as you're watching, just leave us a question in the comments, and we'll work on answering that if you have any of those. We do have some questions here. The first one's RJ Metcalf asked the question, what extra training would you recommend in regards to mental health training? And they said they've completed the sheepdog training, which is great training. But what would you recommend? What are your thoughts on that, buddy, for mental health training?
I think the NAMI group has such a tremendous training for those of us that are on the safety teams that can learn what mental illness is and how to recognize it and how to deal with people, because each one has their own separate little personality and niche that they fall into.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they've definitely got the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI. So that's a great, we've got the picture of it here on the screen. That's a great group, and lots of different training that they've got that's available for you. So that's a great suggestion, buddy. So any other thoughts, anything else?
No, that was the one thing that came to mind. I've gone through that, and it was a 12-week course that we went through, the wife and I went through. Wow. And it's very, very informative. They have different training for different programs, and so not everything is a 12-week issue.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's kind of tough to find local training on that sometimes in that area. Sometimes you find somebody that wants to do some training, but they don't necessarily give us from my experience, give us the stuff that we're looking for, for security, or that even law enforcement might be looking for sometimes. So that we're kind of dovetailing off of. So excellent. Good suggestion. Joel is asking, are you getting FBI bulletins through your police contacts that the rest of us don't get? And how much of these official bulletins can you share? So I don't know what you get, buddy, but I don't get anything special. Once in a while, I'll hear something through law enforcement, but I do a lot of research online for this show, this podcast, and for the stuff I'm putting out online. So I'm constantly digging and find stuff through other police departments that they kind of maybe slip and share some of the information that they're getting with their community, which is a good thing. So, But I'm just finding it through a bunch of research. How about you? Do you have any good
Same,
contacts?
same thing. The only contact I have is with our deputy chief here in town. He's a former Secret Service agent. And so if there's something that's imperative that we need to know, he will let the churches know. But other than that, I don't have any contacts on
Gotcha.
information. And chances are real good they're not going to tell us all the information that they have out there because they just don't want us to know.
Yeah, that's true. There's sometimes they have no clue or they're not getting the info and that's my experience from being in law enforcement in years past is a lot of the federal agencies have the systems and the money and the personnel to monitor these kind of things that are going on, but they're pretty tight-lipped about it sometimes. So just like we're seeing and already discussed about the FBI director, he's trying to cover himself and share that there's potential problems, but he's not really giving us any details. So, and
Well, I don't think he wants anybody to be in panic mode.
That's true. Yeah.
If we know too much, we could have a bad mindset.
That's very true. We might get pretty biased against a group of people if he was to share, some of that. So that's a really good point. So, Paulie, it looks like Paul or Paulie. I see Berna in the background. So, and that's what it's over here. I do have the Berna. I can't get coordinated to show you, but back over here on this side, I am a big fan. What do you think about Berna? And buddy, what do you think about Berna? Let's get both opinions going here.
Yeah, because I don't care for it, but personally, I think it depends on the situation that you're in. Some churches will not allow firearms at all, and Berna may be something that they would consider. It just depends on your situation at your church and your staff and how equipped your people are, who you've got to operate it, how well trained they could be, what kind of time they have to put into training on something like that.
Yeah,
but it has its place.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're working on that ourselves right now, and I love the tool, but you are right. It's like you gotta have some training, and you gotta begin to look at policies, and if you're gonna really, I mean, I tend to say get the team going on the basic stuff, get some people out front, get some people watching. And I'm constantly saying, don't worry about the policy right up front, work on that. And I know some people disagree with that, but I'm all about let's get going. But when you start bringing in and implementing tools like a launcher, a pellet launcher, or the Berna, I'm the opposite on that. I think you got to have some policies in place and train on those policies and train with the use of that. So it definitely becomes a huge responsibility for folks. So even though I'm all for it, so for the church, any other thoughts on that, buddy?
No, I think the training is going to be a big issue on that Berna and your liability issues.
Yes, for sure. Trying to find a video for this next question, but I can't find it. So let's see here. We've got Storm Chaser is asking, do you have any recommendations for self-defense insurance or lawyers in case we have to protect ourselves? What do you think, buddy?
Good luck.
Yeah.
It's difficult to find an insurance company that wants to work with the church because it's just too much risk there for them. You have to have a lot of certifications and a lot of training in order for them to even look at you.
Yes. And we have a video. We actually interviewed, I'm just trying to find it here. There we go. It was released on November 21st of 23. It's called Silent Risks with a question mark. And basically we interviewed insurance agent, Storm Chaser, and they just gave us the rundown, and basically, and their perspective was negotiating with the church to get group coverage. And I walked away from that thinking we need some personal insurance. We need to worry about that ourselves, whether that's through like what is it, the USCCA or the, those groups, the concealed carry folks, whether you're doing something like that. I can't remember the name. I'm drawing a blank here, but whether it's through them, you need something, because when I interviewed that insurance agent representative, he was basically I came away from that with the feeling that your church has to negotiate that. And if they don't negotiate all of these things up front, like that you have a security team, they're armed or they're unarmed, and here's their training and all of that kind of stuff, you're not going to get covered if something happens. The church will get covered, but you're not going to get covered. That was my feeling. That's my opinion on that process there. So general insurance. So kind of what you're saying, buddy. It's just not a comfortable thing. Good luck on that stuff. So I would definitely look into it yourself. So anything else to add to that?
Well, I've gone out and got a personal liability policy, and they're really inexpensive. But here again, the insurance company, you're like going before another attorney, and they're questioning to figure out what you did. What was it legal? Was it not? What's gray areas? How did you proceed with it? There's a lot of things that they can use to disqualify, even if you have $1 million coverage. There's a lot of things they're going to do to try to disqualify paying it out and protect you, because they need to protect themselves.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult to get personal stuff.
Yeah. Paul in the comments says he likes U.S. Law Shield better than USCCA. So matter of opinion. I don't know the differences, but that's definitely one thought coming in from the comments section.
Thank you for your input too.
Yeah, we appreciate it. I'm glad to see all the comments coming in. Roland, it looks like, and I'm running on these, I'm just kind of winging it here. Do you have any advice for volunteers that capture live stream during the service if an incident occurs? Should they instantly cut off the live stream, or should they continue recording? Buddy, do you guys live stream?
Yes, we do.
And do you guys talk about that? What's your plans for that?
Let it roll. That's your evidence.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I don't know, our live stream, we live stream, and we're using the same StreamYard software that we use. And I've got to do 2 or 3 things to cut that off if we're running live. And the first thing that comes to my mind is don't worry about cutting that live stream off. It's evidence, like Buddy's saying. But it's also, I'm more concerned about you getting down or getting out of there if it's serious stuff, or maybe you're on a team that needs to help. And I don't want you to have to worry about clicking a bunch of buttons to shut stuff off before you're focused on your safety, or before you're focused on getting into action. If you're part of the security team or something and you're running the live stream. So I'm with Buddy. I say for your safety, let it roll. And I say for evidence, let it roll. And it will go out in the press, and everybody will have a field day, and I'll use it on the Church Security Answer Man if I get a hold of it. But, but there is education value there too. So, Touring America, will personal CCW insurance cover you if you are part of a security team as well? And they're saying some negative things about the USCCA. Will this stuff cover you? Buddy's already kind of alluded to it. Who knows really if isn't that kind of what you were saying, Buddy? It's like you never really know what could be an excuse that they're not going to cover you.
That's my take on it after talking to the insurance agent. It's just it's up in the air. If you've got the insurance, but how good is it, and are they going to stand behind you?
Yeah, and I think Touring America, good question, and I think it's a question we should all have. And whatever insurance company we have, whatever the insurance is, we should be investing some time, not just paying the $39 a month or $69 a month, whatever it is. I think we should be asking them some serious questions, like, what if this happens? And, running some scenarios by them, the possible scenarios, and maybe even the unknowns. But I think you could get by with 3 or 4 different scenarios if stuff's cut and dried, that you used force and it was very clear it was okay, or if there's stuff that's kind of in a gray area. You should be running those kind of scenarios by your insurance company and ask questions. And that's one of the things that I learned from that insurance agent that we interviewed, was that this stuff has got to be talked about up front with an insurance agent, so that but also so that they can include this stuff in the policy, because otherwise it is not covered if you don't talk about it in the policy or talk about it up front. So we got to be asking these kind of things. Let's see what else we got here. Charles is saying that apparently their live stream has a delay, so cut the feed out, but keep recording internally. Yeah, I suppose that you could do that as well, so you have a little bit of control. But again, I'm more concerned about the discussion of your safety. Also, is I want you going into action, whether that's hiding or running or whatever, or maybe you're on the team and you're going to engage and fight, kind of thing. So I'd rather see that kind of stuff get going than you having to click a bunch of buttons to start or freeze the live stream. So
if you have one key person that's operating that live stream, then they can do that cuts. But as a team, we don't have time to do that. We're worried about safety.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Let's see what else we got here for questions. How do we convince lackadaisical church leaders that these preparations are prudent and necessary, that our training and that our team getting prepared for things are prudent and necessary? That's a good one for you, buddy. What do you think?
I think something's going to have to happen locally to a church in your area, or to your church, or to a pastoral friend from another church that's friends with your pastor, before they ever wake up and say, yeah, I think we better do this. We better protect ourselves. It's going to take an incident before they're going to ever move on anything.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just some that are, what I see, as so afraid of it. And I don't blame them for that. I mean, you're talking about most of our leaders, our priests, our rabbis, our pastors, whoever it is, they've gone to some kind of long-term Bible training or Bible school or seminary, whatever it is, but they haven't gone to police academy or, some kind of security training. So this stuff is foreign to them. So part of it, I think, sometimes is fear. Part of it is not feeling comfortable with who they might get or what the process might be, and just being afraid or not educated on it, or they're just plain and simple going to dig their heels in. And they are our leader. God has put them in place as our leaders. So, we have to respect that. And like Buddy's saying, I mean, that's my opinion too, is that it's going to take something. You just got to pray for them and then get as best prepared as you can. And sometimes I have people that are coming to me, like even the team is not able to do much. So, my opinion is just respectfully get some of your own training, get yourself prepared. And then, like we're trying to do here, learn some of the arguments for security and learn some that are against as well. So you can be prepared for both sides and be ready to have that discussion. Like Buddy's saying, when something happens near you or some story hits home with the pastor or the priest, then or your rabbi, then you're ready to lay it out for them and try to help with that process.
Until then, you can still get started. It does have to call the safety team. We can just be looking out for people in our parking lot, make sure that they get in safely. We don't have any issues. If someone gets sick in church, maybe there's a heart attack or their blood sugar drops or something, those are just medical issues that we deal with. And courtesy things like directing people to where the nursery or preschool is at, and just greeting people. That's a simple way to get a safety team started, is just meet the needs of the people, and it'll grow from there. It's going to take time. Don't push it. Let God open the doors and it'll grow. But if you push it, push the issue, it's not going to work. You got to let God do the work.
Yep. There you go. And be the best candidate you can, kind of thing. Excellent. That's great advice. Great thoughts, buddy. We got Saint Spire. I'm not quite sure what's being said here, but talking about pews are very thick kind of thing. And so if you're running live stream and the pews are thick, yep, you can get down behind those. And typically those are going to be fairly solid, but I would still try to engage your run part if that's what you're talking about. So maybe kind of clarify that with us. Let's see for the next one. Rodney is sharing the churches need to understand that the probability is not zero of something happening at their church. That's correct. I mean, it's a low, I always say there's 380,000 registered churches in the United States. There's over 7,000 in Canada, and there's many, we have people that watch from other countries as well. And many churches registered or many churches known in those areas. So the chances of some of the big stuff like an active shooter or violent intruder happening is lower, but you're right, it's not zero. But then we have all of the other stuff that seems to be coming up. That's more of the intruder, more of the interruptions and other petty stuff. And sometimes could even be tests for your church by someone. They're kind of testing and checking you out. Mm-hmm. That are very important for us to be ready for. Do any of you on teams keep a rifle inside your church secured away but accessible in an emergency? Buddy, what do you think?
We do not. And the reason is because it's just so powerful. Who's it going to hurt? What wall is it going to go through? It can either pass through a person and still go through a wall.
Yeah.
And so that's difficult. We just have stayed away from it. We've thought about it, talked about it, different calibers, but we think it's best just to go ahead with our pistols.
Yeah, and you gotta, and I'm just kind of spitballing here, but you got to remember that statistically, we can cure a lot. We can stop a lot of the active shooters. I don't have a study name offhand, but I know I've seen the studies, and you can look them up. But a high percentage of these folks, as soon as they're confronted if they have a gun and they're confronted by somebody who has a gun, and the person that's confronting them doesn't even necessarily have to exchange gunfire with them, but they will stop their process. A high percentage, it's over 60%. It's like 64% will actually commit suicide. And so, realistically, just having a gun or being able to confront somebody with your handgun and being able to ask them to stop is a good percentage. And there's another percentage of them that'll stop and leave, or if you're challenging them, then they're not going to be able to do as much damage because you are challenging them. So, man, yeah, the rifle scares me. What Buddy's saying, the rifle is just nasty stuff for going through walls and hitting other people and going through people and just keep going. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of having a rifle around. I know a lot of people talk about it, and I know I've heard from some folks that say they have a rifle in a closet at church, but I just don't see the need for it myself.
Well, first of all, if we're doing the first thing we need to do is make a presence outside, keep your doors locked, screen people carefully, and make sure that I even pat people down occasionally. You shake a hand and pat them on 3 o'clock, and you can typically find out if they're carrying a weapon or not. And we just need to do a better job of screening and keep that situation out of the building.
Yes, that's excellent point. Excellent point. And and we've read situations. The Nashville one comes to mind. The Nashville school comes to mind, where we saw in the manifesto, written in the manifesto, that that young lady didn't go to a certain place because there was security out front. And so there was security presence. So we can do a lot of work to turn people away and turn these kind of things away out front. And then even further down in her manifesto, when she was going to the school, she had plans to make sure there wasn't any security at that place as she was arriving there. The one she did end up committing the violence. So being out in the parking lot, like Buddy's mentioning, is just gold. So Touring America is asking if you have a firearms qualification for your security team, should you offer multiple tries in a day, a session, or have it be a one and done if you don't pass? Practice and try another day. Buddy, how do you guys handle that?
I have a firearms instructor from the academy that we work with, and we go through 4 different levels of training with him and become tactical shooters. And that's our training on that. And he makes sure that we're doing a good job, or he won't pass us. He won't let us get our certification.
Okay. Yeah. And we're kind of lenient. So far, we have most of our folks are real good shooters because of their backgrounds or something that we have. But my personal opinion is, I don't think it has to be a one and done kind of thing. If somebody doesn't pass,
No.
give them a chance. Like the end of your question says there, Touring. If you don't pass, do some practice and try another day. I would think you might, if they're not that bad. I mean, if they're not even hitting the target, then I think we have a problem. But if they're just like missing their qualification by a round or two, and it's not thrown way off or something, I think that you can give them a chance or two. Let them practice and get better. Let them practice and get better. And if they don't, then at some point, then you have to say, maybe you need to be an unarmed security person. So, and don't forget, I hope you have those options to have unarmed folks as well. So they're still very, very useful. I have unarmed folks. Do you have unarmed folks, Buddy?
Yes, most of our team is unarmed.
Yeah. So
we just have a few people that are armed. And back on the qualifying, if you have a good instructor that's helping the person, they're going to give that person, if you're having troubles, they're going to help you, tell you how to hold your gun, how to stand, and those kind of things, and give you tips on shooting so that you become a more proficient shooter.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Okay, remember to be supportive. I'm seeing a couple of comments towards each other that just remember to be supportive of each other. So that's what this is all about, being supportive, not critical of each other. Okay, so let's go over to how will you, Jeff is asking, how will you sufficiently vet those desiring to be members in your security team? How do you do that, buddy?
We can find a role for them someplace. If they're a misfit and just are not going to be good on it in any situation, we just tell them that we've got things covered right now. We'll keep you in mind. But there's plenty of roles that people can do on the safety team. Set at the camera, keep an eye on the cameras. Where they don't have to deal with people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that we can do. Just patrol the parking lot.
Yeah.
With places where we can put people so that they can serve, and they want to serve, and God's going to help them out. And we can train them, we can equip them to be better people.
Yeah.
That's part of our job.
Yeah. We've talked about it on other podcasts. If you vet them, you do your background, and hopefully, these folks for a little bit. They're just not walking into the church and asking to be on the security team, and you're considering them for the team. I mean, unless they're a police officer, or you can find that they're a former police officer, and you still got to background them, and and get to know them a little bit, and maybe even part of your process of getting to know them is putting them in a not a major place, not a focal point, and unarmed. Maybe you're getting to know them for a little bit, and so But don't forget, when on the topic of using people, like Buddy's talking about, I've got a couple folks in my church who really want to be on the team, but they're not. I know stuff about them that tells me that they're not great communicators and they're not stable enough for the team. But otherwise, don't let things interfere with, I've talked about before, if people have little issues, they're very elderly, find a place for them. They can sit in a chair, they can sit in a golf cart, they can sit in a car somewhere in the parking lot or something. Give them a radio. We can find places for people to serve in the team. If they are not able to qualify, put them into an area that's just shift them over to an unarmed area, that kind of thing. So, and that, using unarmed positions, maybe even as part of your, once you background and do the basic stuff, as part of the vetting, maybe to see how they do in not the front door, but maybe someplace else that you can have them serve. Like Buddy has a good camera system, so for them to serve on. I don't have that, so that's excellent. Any other thoughts on that, Buddy?
Nope.
Okay. And YouTube user says, in our small church, our focus is trying to de-escalate, not come out guns blazing. Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
We're all about that. We're all about that. If we have somebody that's really focused on their guns and use of force and that kind of stuff, that's concerning to us. So we definitely want to be, don't forget, we want a warm and welcoming environment. And so in my case, I try to be the best, even though I'm out in the parking lot or working near the front door, I try to be the best greeter that anybody has ever seen and be friendly with people and stuff. But I know I'm ready to go if something goes wrong or I see somebody that's suspicious. I'm still friendly, but I go into that kind of a mode. But otherwise, yeah, de-escalation, being friendly, welcoming person is the important part of it. So, how do you, Tony's asking, how do you handle suspicious visitors bringing in backpacks? What do you think, buddy?
Just simply just say, hey, we have a policy that you can bring your backpack in, but it needs to stay in this room.
Okay.
If you need to pull your Bible out or a pen or something, go ahead and grab it, but the backpack stays here.
Yeah. Do you search any
backpacks or persons?
Yeah.
I don't search anything.
Okay.
No. As long as I have control of it, I'm too worried about it.
Yeah. Do you have a separate room or anything you put them in, or are you keeping it in the lobby kind of thing?
I keep it in one of the offices. It's close to the welcome center.
Gotcha. And that's what we have. We have, backpacks don't go into the main service. And we've had some large backpacks. I can remember one guy that was backpacking across the United States, and he stopped in for church. And so it had everything that he needed for living for a month or two. And so we put it in we have a side room that we lock up, and we put it in there, and he went on into service. And I've had a couple other people that have smaller, they're almost like bags. They're like nylon bags, but they're wearing them as a backpack. And I've asked to search them because they wanted to take them with them. And one person let me search, and one of those people did not. And we did not let that person go into the service that did not want to allow me to look at that backpack. So, but we do have a TV room, and we let him go into the TV room to watch TV. So we have that accommodation. So if they don't allow you to search, or if they don't want to give up their backpack, then are they just out, buddy?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No questions.
They got a backpack and they don't want to give it up, then they're gone.
One of the things I've run across is in church, we have so many of the folks have the attitude that we need to be kind and benevolent and loving and accepting. That's not always the best approach to take. We need to protect our people, and you've got to have the mindset of being able to judge, make a decision real quick on yes or no, and take that responsibility. And I've had somebody that's on a committee that got upset with me because I took a stand. I told the guy no, but 2 weeks later, he apologized. He said, because the person that I had talked to and put them in their place. All of a
Yeah.
sudden started complying with, and we were able to help and minister to them after that. But they had to know that they got to play by the rules.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not, majority of your people, I just talked about yesterday in a podcast, 54%, according to a recent study by Church Mutual, 54% of people are worried about bad things happening, an active shooter, violent intruder, and only 27% of people feel like their churches are ready for a big incident. So they appreciate you in the job that you do, but don't think everybody does. So be ready for, when something's happening, if you haven't had very much, many incidents, when something does happen, somebody in your church is probably going to be a little bit questioning or a little bit critical of what you're doing. So you need to be ready for that. So we just do the best that we can. But like Buddy's saying, there is a line where we got to protect our people. And fortunately, my pastor he's like, sometimes I think he's ready to kick people out before I am. So I'm fortunate in that area, but I have that backing. But, there's just sometimes where we've got to protect the whole group as opposed to one visitor who's probably never going to come back, is from my experience. So, they're just traveling through or whatever the case is. So anything else, buddy, on that?
Nope. I think it's pretty well covered.
Yeah. So buddy, if you don't mind, Storm Chasers asking, why put a backpack in a room without checking it? What if it is a bomb?
That's a good point. What if it is a bomb? I just overlooked that. But
yeah, well,
he's right.
Yeah, and and I foresee, if you really look at bombs and they're explosive, and I'm not a bomb technician or expert or anything, but if we put them away from people, so if you put them in a room, Buddy said he puts them in an office. That's why we do that. We put ours down the hall a little bit in a room, lock it up. I mean, it could explode in there, but chances are the amount of explosives in that backpack is not going to be big enough to run through multiple walls and harm people. So as long as you're 2 or 3 rooms away from the auditorium, that's the best bet. And honestly, the chances of it being a bomb, how many of those incidents do we see where somebody brings a backpack? Good point to make, Storm Chaser, in the future. I mean, because we do have some countries that we're told or they're beginning to cross our borders or have crossed our borders that really don't like us, that use IEDs or explosive devices. So it's something to think about in the future. But your 2 chances, if you put something in a backpack, my first thought are the chances of it being a bomb or an explosive device are minimal these days until we start seeing more of that. And if there was an explosive device in there, it's not like we've seen in the past where it's a U-Haul truck or a moving van full of explosive chemicals, fertilizer and a mixture that could cause a huge explosion that destroys a building. It's a backpack. So, so we've got 2 chances that it's not going to be that big a deal. And on the other side, remember, we got to have balance, warm and welcoming versus watching people. So if we start digging through people's stuff, it tends to be a negative situation. So I'm all for, as long as they don't need to keep the backpack with them, the backpack goes down to a separate place. Where I put them is probably about 100 feet from the auditorium, and there are basically 4 walls between that backpack and any person. So during the service kind of thing. So anything to add to that, buddy?
We're pretty much the same way. We have 3 walls between that room and the auditorium. But I used to work armed security. Joe is an officer, which we come from 2 different backgrounds. In working in a security situation, I have had to search backpacks. Typically, if you're going to find something, it's going to be a knife. Occasionally, you'll find a gun, and it'll be a knife or some kind of pepper spray that you find in a backpack. And weapons, as far as firearms, I find very few firearms in them. But yeah, I have searched them, but in the church, we just haven't had that situation. Haven't been in that environment where we needed to do the search. And it's a good idea about a bomb threat. I hadn't thought about that, but with the culture that's coming into our country now, it's a good suggestion, something we should follow up on. I thank you for that input.
Yeah, it's certainly a good thing to bring up. And, and I usually watch what's going on. What's the climate, and I do see the threats these days. But what are the types, even the types of explosive devices? If we've, a few years ago, we've seen packages put on doorsteps. That's been a common thing when we look at explosive devices. It doesn't happen a lot, but at churches, it's putting a package near the front door, and some kind of suspicious package, and there's an explosive device in it. So I look at trends, what is going on, and we certainly have the possibilities now of more explosive devices. But the reality is we still haven't seen it to where they're putting something in a backpack and bringing it in and setting it down. We haven't seen that relative to churches. We've seen things, at street corners and in garbage cans and in near parks and near jogathons, running, marathons kind of thing. We've seen that kind of stuff, but we haven't seen that yet relative to churches. So that's why you want to pay attention to the news. If we start seeing a new trend, people love to copycat. People that have those mental health issues, you might call them, or those tendencies to want to be violent and be that lone wolf person, we'll start seeing a trend and they'll copy what they saw somebody else do if it got a lot of attention. So we certainly want to be watching for that stuff and see what the trends are, but I'm not seeing explosive devices in backpacks being really predominant here in the United States yet, or in Canada, for those of you watching from Canada. So, but it is, the explosive devices are popular in other places. So Jill has a similar question. Is there something that could pose a threat in the backpack? Yes, it's certainly a possibility. We're doing the balance of welcoming environment. We're not digging through your stuff. And we're putting it in a room, which is kind of the balance, because we don't expect there's going to be explosive devices in it, because we're not seeing that trend right now. And so we're balancing that and just putting it in a room down the hallway. But certainly there could be something in there that poses a threat, if you will. So, and Jill follows up with a question: is it legal to search a backpack? And basically, in most any jurisdiction that I'm aware of, it's based on the fact that those are your premises. So we get into that if you want to follow a process, you can do that. If you want to search a backpack, that's your building, that's your church, you can do that. But it might upset people. The pastor might not want you to do that, or the priest or the rabbi. They may not want you to search those backpacks because it offends people, and they may not come back. So there's that balance. I'm not aware of where it's illegal, though, for you. You'll see stuff all the time on TV and in the news where did police have the right to search and seize things, whether it's search cars, search backpacks, those kind of things. But that's different. This is your own property, your church, your building, whether you're renting it or you own the building. At that moment, it really comes down to that right to refuse service kind of thing. So, and still, people could challenge that. Anything to add to that, buddy?
Well, our responsibility is to protect the people and the property, and we can take whatever measures we need to do to accomplish that task. It's a little different than a police officer. They've got their hands tied in some situations. But as we work in security, like we do at church, our job is to protect the people in the building and the property.
Yes, very much so. So anything comes up, then you gotta look at that. You do have to have your boundaries, and backpacks is one of those things where we say, hey, yeah, there could be some bad stuff in there. There could be a gun. There could be chemicals. There could be a bomb. So we draw a line. A lot of us draw a line there. Some of us draw the line because we don't know really why the line's drawn, but we're going to draw that line too because other people are talking about it. Whatever the reason is, though, we need to protect our people. So, and Jill follows up with, they don't really have a lot of rooms to put those in. So you're just going to have to decide, Jill, find the best thing that you can, whether it's a closet, might be a closet down the hall, might even be the janitor's closet or
the trunk of their car
closet, just whatever option you can come up with. If nothing else, then they have to put it back in their car, or their vehicle. And if they don't have a vehicle or a car, then you got a decision to make. But that's why this discussion, the points that Buddy's bringing up, the points that I'm making, that's why this stuff is good for us to have the conversation so that you can prepare, that you can think and maybe have a discussion with somebody else. Hey, where can we put a backpack if somebody comes in with a backpack? And maybe you're even at that point, you're having the conversation of, should we search backpacks? Maybe it's that new for some of you. And should we allow backpacks in? And if you don't really know a place where you can keep it, start having a discussion. And there's got to be a room somewhere or a place that you can put that, but you need to keep it secure. You don't want any claims that stuff was stolen out of it. So it's got to be a place you can put it where you lock it up and take care of it, or else they take it back out to their vehicle. Or maybe there's a case where you don't have a place to put it, they don't have a vehicle, and they don't come in. I mean, there might be that case, or they let you search it, and then you have to make those decisions if that works for you. So it's all about making those decisions and talking about that stuff like we're doing right now. So David says, if the person doesn't want to allow a search, they're free to leave the premises. And that's exactly right. I mean, absolutely. If you have your standards, it's your premises. So you make those decisions. Now, people can come back and try to sue or make complaints and that kind of stuff, but they can do that with pretty much anything. So anything else to add to all of that, buddy?
No, I agree with you. That's good stuff.
Okay, we're coming up on our hour, so make sure you get your questions in. We got just a little bit more time here. Do you, Touring America, buddy, is asking, do you encourage written reports at the end of each shift or service?
No, we do not. The only time we have a report is if there's an incident, and we do have incident report forms to fill out for those. But no, we do not. After services, we do not do that.
Okay, yeah, we're the same way. We just don't do a report every day or every week kind of thing. I do check in with the pastor, with our lead pastor. We have an agreement that the team leader for that day, which might be me or somebody else, checks in with him after the service just to say everything went great or we had an issue. If we do have an issue, we do write a report. And if you don't have report forms, you can get those for free. Just go over to churchsecurityanswerman.com and look for, on the right side, look for those freebies, and you can get reports there, that report forms that you can download that are designed for your church liability purposes and questions that insurance or police might ask later down the road. So definitely. Let's see. So I don't know. I can't tell who this is from. It's a YouTube person, but I can't see the name. It's Everett. Everett is mentioning, I think a priority for the congregation is, let's see, they need to know any plan. Does the congregation need to know any planned escape routes or signals? And Everett's saying he believes that they need to know escape routes or signals. And do they need to be aware of information received about a threat so they can be alert? What do you think, buddy? I got another question off of that here too from Everett. But do you think, I mean, obviously, the congregation needs to know escape routes and that kind of stuff. I mean, that's for most of our areas, that's a fire code thing that you need
Right.
to make sure they know exits and that kind of stuff. But do they need to be aware of information about a threat so that they can be alert as well? What do you think?
No, because it's going to be a distraction to them. They're there to worship, and it's the team's responsibility to keep them safe. And the team is organized and can exit people out of the building orderly. And we just need to let people worship and not be distracted by other things.
Yeah. Yeah. I 100% agree with that. So we don't want to get off track on what security's job is. And we're there to make sure that people are able to worship and be ministered to and that kind of thing. And they don't need those distractions, exactly like Buddy is saying. So we should be out in the parking lot. We should be at the doors, even trying to even prevent those people from even getting into the service, getting close. We should be screening to try to keep people that are going to become a distraction from getting in there. So that's our job. And if we have some kind of alert, we have an alert going on right now in our area for someone who 2 different churches have obtained court-ordered restraining orders against this person because he's making threats to them. And he talks a lot about firearms and stuff like that. And he sounds like he's a dangerous guy. We're hoping he doesn't come to our church, but it's right close to us, the churches that he's been threatening, and they've obtained restraining orders. So we all on the security team know about this person. We've got a picture because there was a picture in the newspaper about him. But we don't tell the congregation. There's no need for the congregation to know about that because we're all watching, and that's our job to make sure that they're comfortable and they're able to do that. Anything to add to that, Buddy?
Well, it's not only a job, but it's our ministry.
Yes.
And that's just part of our ministry is to make those decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. And plans about your operation. Do you share that with your congregation?
No.
Yeah.
Our congregation is, if they ask plans, you're well protected. That's all I know.
Yeah. I have people that ask, I have people that come up and ask me if I'm security because our name tags say guest services, and we're always referred to as guest services. So I have people come up and ask me if I'm security, those kind of things. And I'll tell them, especially if they're regular attenders to the church, I'll share with them. They'll ask me if I'm armed. And if they're a person I've known for a long time, I'll tell them that I am, but I will not show them or talk about where my gun's kept or any of that kind of stuff. That's not professional and not information I want to share.
Right.
But I am not going to share our tactics or how we do things or that kind of stuff. What I do share, we try after we have our major training events 2 to 4 times a year. I will share that the security team I'll share a quick video clip because we have video announcements. So I'll throw a little 15-second clip in there about thanking the security team for attending their training and maybe sometimes a little bit about what they trained on in general. So the latest security practices, the latest information, things that are going on around the nation relative to churches. And I'll put a little blurb in there just to let the congregation know that we're watching out for them. That's all I do. So I do not share any kind of details or that kind of thing. So anything else, Buddy, on that?
Nope.
I think in fact, we're over our hour. So I just want to thank everybody for joining us. This has been a great time. I love your questions. And thanks to Buddy for taking time out of his work and in Ohio to join us. This is, I think, a great mix here for us to answer your questions, those kind of things. You can always send a question too. Just put it in the comments down below here. We do read those and we do answer them, or we respond to them in these types of sessions. So please leave us a comment and certainly subscribe so that you can connect and know when we're doing these things. But I so appreciate your tasks, everything that you folks need to do And that's what we're trying to do, is help you with that based on our experience, those kind of things. So thanks for being here, and we will talk to you again later, buddy.
Thanks. I thank y'all for your comments, and we're able to learn from one another, and I certainly appreciate y'all's participation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks, buddy. Talk to you later.
Later, man.